Welcome to Discover Cape. Discover Cape is a 30-minute program that will introduce you to fascinating people, take you to interesting places, and enlighten you on important events that happen in our region. This month, we'll visit the Southeast Missouri Regional Museum. We'll barbecue with an old hickory pit. We'll visit the new conservation campus in Cape County Park. And tour the Stars and Stripes Museum with a special guest.
Well, I do what you always do when you look for a job. You lie about your credentials, you know. And I had worked for a newspaper in Albany, mostly delivering it, but I had worked...
I remember when it first hit me.
Applied energy in a forward direction equals human locomotion.
What does this all mean, Doc?
Well, it changed life as we know it.
I thought, wow, this concept might actually change the way we get from point A to point B. I felt like Einstein inventing the telephone.
I give you the human foot.
Get up, get out, get moving. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
First up, the Stars and Stripes Museum in Bloomfield. It holds treasures from past battles and memories from the greatest generation. Andy Rooney is the guest and remembers his days as a writer for the Stars and Stripes newspaper. It is a museum nestled in the small town of Bloomfield, Missouri. It holds significant items from every major military conflict of the United States. But more importantly, it tells about the beginning of one of the most important newspapers that was ever printed, the Stars and Stripes.
We got people from all services, and we all served, we all lived together, drank together, went out together, helped each other, you know. You were a striper, anything for a striper. And it's still that way today.
And I just hated the Army. And the Army didn't care much for me either, I remember.
As long as it's military, you can tie it in some way or the other because that's what the Stars and Stripes is military.
They could not have brought this museum to Bloomfield if not everybody was enthusiastic and in favor of it. Well, the Stars and Stripes Museum Library is dedicated, it's a place dedicated to honoring this newspaper that is the military's newspaper. When men and women are serving in the armed forces, overseas, home, wherever, they have their own newspaper that is put out. The idea for the museum came up when a copy of this newspaper printed in 1861 was found in somebody's attic. And this man in another state who found this copy of this newspaper called the Smithsonian and said, "Do you want this?" And they wanted it, but they didn't want to pay for it. So then the man contacted the newspaper office in Bloomfield and said, "I've got this artifact, a newspaper called the Stars and Stripes printed in Bloomfield from November 1861. Would somebody there be interested?" And some of the people involved in the historic preservation movement down there, Historical Society, heard of this and found the money. Man didn't want too much, under $500 he wanted for this, and they found the money and bought it. And I believe that was the genesis for this to go beyond just buying this newspaper, now finding a home to honor this paper in.
The way I contributed was basically all my life and all my father's life, and I've got a great uncle as well, that we've all collected military and military relics in general. And we've just accumulated a large collection and needed a place to put it other than the house. So here it is.
The Stars and Stripes Museum hosts an annual reunion that brings together men and women from around the world. This year, members from around the United States, Germany, and Japan attended. There were the usual activities for a reunion, but most of the stripers were able to reminisce and share their stories of war. Each veteran had a story, and each story was important. But there were a few veterans that stood out. One, famous for his photographs, and the other, famous for his stories. Red Grandy shot one of the most famous photographs of General Eisenhower, and 60 Minutes commentator Andy Rooney shared some telling moments of his days with the Stars and Stripes.
The whole world found out that President Truman had fired MacArthur, who was then the commander in Korea, fired him, replaced him with General Ridgway. And these are two five-star generals, okay? There's Eisenhower and MacArthur. Well, he didn't, somehow at lunchtime later on, we found out that he had not been told by the French that this happened. Can you believe this? I mean, this is okay. 3 hours later, we're up back on a mountain to cover a kind of a maneuver the French are putting on. And I thought, since he's not heard about this, we think, said, don't tell him until I get ready to take a picture, right? So I'm standing in front of him at a table with two generals, French generals. And this guy, Dick O'Malley from AP, said, General Eisenhower, did you hear the news about MacArthur? He said, no, what happened? He said, well, he's just been fired by Truman, replaced by General Ridgway. And then I snapped this picture of his face. And that's the face he made. And that went all over the world. But the story behind this was I took it back to the news desk and gave it to the night editor. He turned it down. This won everything but the Pulitzer Prize. The guy that turned it down later became the picture editor of the New York Daily News. You can't believe it.
The Stars and Stripes had printed originally in Ireland for a short time, in Europe, and then it moved to London. And they were just dumping 2 million American soldiers into the British Isles. And the Stars and Stripes was a weekly up until then, and they realized that they had to make a daily out of it. So they put out a bulletin for all newspaper men to report and announce themselves to the paper in London. Well, I do what you always do when you look for a job. You lie about your credentials, you know. And I had worked for a newspaper in Albany, mostly delivering it, but I had worked in the editorial room for a short time, a couple of summers, but I was not a newspaper man. But anyway, they were so desperate that I got the job, and it was the great day of my life, I suppose, one of the best days of my life. It just changed the course of my life. Most of the people on the Stars and Stripes at that time, there were about 7 or 8 people, and they were all very good, experienced newspaper people. Charlie Kiley was one of my best friends, and he already knew how to do it. And there were Bud Hutton was one of the principal editors. There was a fellow named Bob Moore who was with the Herald Tribune, and Ben Price, and Ralph Martin. There was a fellow named Phil Bucknell. I saw his picture at the museum today. And Bucknell was British, and I guess he was an American citizen, I don't know, but he had worked for British newspapers for several years. So this Bud Hutton was a tough editor, very good, bright guy. He'd been an editor in Binghamton, New York, and a lot of other places. He was very experienced. So Bucknell hands him this copy one day, and Hutton looks at it. He said, "Bucknell, God damn it," he said, a British newspaper says, "I understand Hitler has declared war and I think it is terrible." The British Times says, "Hitler has declared war and it is terrible." An American newspaper says, "Hitler has declared war, period, and you, goddammit, work for an American newspaper." The big question that came to my mind this morning when I was coming here and when I got here was, why the hell did I say I'd do that? And then I met all you people and had such a good time, and it is so good to have all these memories together, and you're such a great group of people. Now I know why I came. Thanks.
I think it's very important for the children to learn about conservation. They live in a world that's mainly inside and cars and classrooms, and they need to be outside.
For me, it's giving the best of myself.
For me, it's the professional team environment and the mutual respect that I share with my colleagues.
For me, it's providing my patients with the best and safest care possible.
For me, it's having the latest in healthcare technologies.
For me, it's the reward that comes from caring for America's veterans. We are the nurses of VA.
For all of us, it's the pride of working in a supportive professional environment.
With great benefits and opportunities for career advancement.
And the privilege of providing the best health care to America's veterans.
VA Nursing, a career in caring. Go to vacareers.com for more information.
And if these people got off the couch and walked, we wouldn't have to have people to sleep.
Do you know how many kids are risking their health by eating unhealthy foods, stuffing themselves, and not getting any exercise?
Thank goodness, you got here just in time. Where's the problem? In there.
But doctors know that our children need to be pointed in the right direction when it comes to food.
Hey, what's going on? What are you doing?
I can't control him. He won't listen to me.
Mom, they're taking my ice cream!
Pass me those veggie burgers.
Here, try this. The original fast food.
A diet rich in fruits, vegetables, high-fiber vegetarian foods can help them grow up healthy. To find out more, call for a free booklet or visit our website, kidsgethealthy.org.
Thanks. Well, another family turned around and 200 million to go.
The new conservation campus at Cape County Park lets young and old discover the natural beauty of our area. It's a hands-on approach to learning and an inviting place to visit.
I'm April Dozier. I'm the Nature Center manager here at the Cape Girardeau Conservation Campus Nature Center. Conservation Campus Nature Center is actually a cornerstone in the Cape Girardeau area for education. It allows people to learn more about the out of doors and find out about conservation firsthand. The Missouri Department of Conservation built the Conservation Campus so that we can have an opportunity to give people a chance to experience conservation and learn more about activities and issues, see how they can get involved. And we use education as one of our main focuses at this facility.
My name is Jeremy Susi, and I'm an education specialist with the Missouri Department of Conservation here at the beautiful Conservation Campus Nature Center. I'm standing out in front of what is kind of the jewel of our place. We actually have a small fishing pond for kids ages 16 and under. We allow them to fish free. We actually provide them with bait and tackle and all that things. We also allow them to keep their fish if they'd like, or they can return it, which is a responsible thing to do. We also offer the First Fisherman Award. In that, they catch their first fish and they bring it in and they get a certificate, and we can take their picture with the fish and all those great things. We're out on the trails today looking at a standard oak hickory forest is what we have in this area. It's what you're going to see in Missouri, especially in this area. We either have swamps or forest, and here we're in a swamp today. Swamp ecology is huge in this area. Lots of the youngsters that come in here don't realize that this whole area, the southeast area, used to be covered in swamps. We've got great examples of some of the wildlife. You can actually see an otter coming through here, coming through the swampy water. This exhibit here is a great example of a beaver lodge that you would find in southeast Missouri. Lots of areas like Mingo National Wildlife and All Red Lake have lots of different beaver dams. They're great for ecology. You can actually see one of our resident beavers right here. It's a great hands-on activity. Kids can climb through and actually get inside and see what it would be like to be a beaver. We've got our alligator snapping turtle here. These are really huge turtles. These guys can live a few hundred years. They actually weigh about 150 pounds, which is almost as much as I weigh. Their shells can get extremely large. They're rare and actually endangered in certain areas. The reason being is I mentioned that swamps were so important here, and this whole area used to be called actually Swamp East Missouri, and now most of those swamps are gone, which means his habitat is gone.
My name is Nita Sheets, and I'm a preschool teacher at Westminster Christian Preschool. and I work with the children that are 3 and they're turning 4. This is our first year to come to the new conservation campus, and I'm very excited about that because I've been using the conservation material that Missouri Conservation has put out for many years. It's great material to teach preschoolers, and we're so glad to come here where we can find out more and put those hands on things and to see things and to learn more about the outdoors. I think it's very important for the children to learn about conservation. They live in a world that's mainly inside in cars and classrooms, and they need to be outside. They need to know about trees and animals and plants and fish and birds, and we study that at preschool, but it's good for them to come here just to learn more about the outdoors.
So there are a lot of good things to learn through our exhibits and places to go and see that are here in southeast Missouri. Celebrate this wonderful region of the state. The Nature Center is open Tuesday through Saturday, 8 to 5, Sundays noon to 5. We are closed on Mondays and a few of the big holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's. One of the wonderful things about the Conservation Campus is it's free of charge. Missouri has a 1/8% sales tax money that goes directly to conservation, and facilities like this Nature Center are open free of charge. So the programs and activities don't cost. Can't beat that.
We manufacture and market commercial barbecue ovens.
They came from every corner of the country, from small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines, a tough and determined few dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still, they come. Celebrate the history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
There are great business success stories within our own region. The Old Hickory Pits is one of those success stories. If you like barbecue, this is the ultimate grill, and these grills are all over the country.
I'm David Knight, and this is Old Hickory Barbecue Pits. We manufacture and market commercial barbecue ovens and smokers for restaurants, caterers, meatpacking houses, and more recently, even individuals. In 1974, it began actually as a restaurant, the Port Cape Girardeau restaurant in Cape Girardeau down by the riverfront. And it probably took a few years before we actually started experimenting and branching into the equipment aspect of it. The process, as it begins here in our factory, begins in the cutting and welding department. There we take mild steel and cut to length and to size what we need to build what we call our basic blank. That's the inner steel framework of the barbecue pit, to which then we add the insulation, the wiring, the controls, and an exterior of stainless steel. And we put the doors on them and equip them with a power burner that is thermostatically controlled and helps regulate the temperature. The majority of our pits are used in restaurant installations inside the kitchen and that. But a portion of our business are people that desire a barbecue pit that's mobile. We have pits on a trailer, for example, with a canopy top, which we manufacture here. We have a variety of spices that are used not only for barbecue, but can be used for other items. We have our all-purpose spice, which is very popular as a barbecue rub or a barbecue spice, but can be used for other products. One of our most popular items is our pepperall, which is a blend of 5 different mild peppers that are dried and used as a substitute for regular black pepper. The future, as far as we define it at this time, is to approach more and more the broader aspects, including the residential and small commercial applications. Traditionally, we've focused on the medium to large operators, and at the present time, our focus is on the smaller and smaller type applications of our technology.
We have, at this point, approximately 42 statues and reliefs that were on display at the 1904 World's Fair.
It starts in your own neighborhood. When you care enough to give your time to help someone still learning the way and getting involved in the needs of your community.
Once you've helped bring a smile to someone's face and help brighten their day, you'll be hooked for life.
The Major League Baseball Players Trust and Volunteers of America are teaming up to make a real difference in the lives of the people in our communities. No matter who you are or where you live, Volunteers of America believes there are no limits to caring. Join a winning team. See what you can do to help. Call 800-899-0089 or visit volunteersofamerica.org.
The Southeast Missouri Regional Museum is known for the collections of archaeology, history, and fine art. The museum provides changing exhibitions, instructive displays, and educational programs for the university, community, and general public.
My name's Stanley Grand, and I'm the director of the Southeast Missouri Regional Museum. We collect in three general areas. One is archaeology, which is regional prehistory. There's regional history, and there are the fine arts. The archaeological collection began with a gift to Southeast Missouri Teachers College at that point by Thomas Beckwith, who was a landowner in the Charleston area south of Cape Girardeau. He was an amateur archaeologist, so the Beckwith collection consists of 1,000 pots, bowls, vessels, bottles that he excavated, and about 6,000 lithics. As I said, those came to the collection to the university in 1913, and then there have been a number of other gifts to the university since then, primarily lithics. In terms of the regional history, we have at this point approximately 42 statues and reliefs that were on display at the 1904 World's Fair. The president of the Board of Regents at that time, Lewis Houck, went up to the World's Fair and at the conclusion of the fair purchased 58 of them, which were sent down to Cape Girardeau by boat and installed in Academic Hall. And that was in 1906 when Academic Hall opened. He purchased them in 1904, of course, at the end of the fair. We also have a number of other items in the regional and historic collections. As you can see behind me, there are a number of oriental pieces, and these represent gifts that various benefactors have given to the museum over time, but are of interest to students and local people nonetheless. The fine arts collection, the vast bulk of it, comes from two New York benefactors, George and Placide Shriver, and they had given the university about 700 different works of art. So for the most part, we have been the beneficiaries of various collections, gifts. We do not have a large fund for acquisitions. So we've relied on the generosity of various people. Our exhibition schedule consists of about 8 different exhibitions a year. roughly half are what we consider to be service exhibitions. Restoration is a tricky subject. The cardinal rule of restoration is reversibility, which means that if you do something to a work of art, you have to be able to have it undone, to be reversed at a different time. The first rule is don't do anything that will permanently alter the work. If we look at the Houck statuary, most of that was restored in the 1970s because there were either broken pieces or there were graffiti written on the works. These sculptures had been dispersed from Statuary Hall in the 1930s, which means they were kind of kicking around campus for 40 years before Jim Parker, the first director here, gathered them up and then tried to fix them. So in the restoration process, they were painted, and they were painted in a way that is probably not reversible. Jim Parker and a couple of students were involved in the restoration. Athena, which we have over there, her hand had been broken off, her left hand. And the hand that you see now was actually modeled on Professor Edwin Smith's hand. So there were students that were helping with that. The museum is in a very exciting stage of its development point. We expect to open a brand new facility on the River campus for the visual and performing arts. But we have been planning for this move now for almost 3 years. I am very fond of the Houck statuary collection. The earliest work in this is a plaster cast of the Charioteer of Delphi, and that's about 480 BC. So we have an example of a severe style. We have classic pieces. We have a number of reliefs from the Parthenon. We have a Demosthenes and a Cicero. And both of those people were written about by the Roman historian Plutarch. So somebody who might not have heard of either of those people or Plutarch could have a way to become familiar with both writers and also individuals. That's why I'm particularly fond of them.
We'd like to end this show with sights and sounds of the seasons. Here's a collection of scenes of autumn. Thanks for taking this journey with us. Next month, we'll talk with members of the United Way and their mission to share a helping hand. We'll also visit Old St. Vincent's Church and get ready for the holidays. Each month, we will take this journey where there are many places to go. There are many interesting people to meet and so many new things to discover. Join us again as we discover Cape.